Okay, this is Matt Johnson and Adam talking about, I think, Operation Avalanche, but I don't even know.
A few things.
Who knows what we'll talk about? And I guess, it's take one, but I don't think we're redoing anything.
Thanks. That was horrible. Do it again.
Yeah, you know what? You should see the slates that we do in our movies. They go on 2-3 minutes. We also do a lot of the slates where, because we're just trying to fuck with our editors, we'll do it where we look like we hit our hands, but we don't, and we make it happen at an angle where they're like, what the fuck? Where's the sync?
That's funny.
Where you just miss. Yeah, try it. Next time you're on a feature, just slate everything the wrong way.
So, I'm here with Matt Johnson, the director of The Dirties and Operation Avalanche. You might have seen The Dirties featured on my top 10 films of 2013 list. First of all, tell us about your new feature film, Operation Avalanche.
Well, it's a fake documentary about the CIA faking the moon landing. And the premise is simple. But what we were trying to do is really create like an artifact, an actual document, like a 16mm film reel that was buried by this guy who worked for the CIA and faked the moon landing, and then was just dug up. So a found footage movie, except in the same way that The Dirties was a found footage movie, which is to say a fake documentary. And using all the language and the formal technique of documentaries from the 1960s and combining it with sort of the weird political thrillers that were also coming out at the same time. But again, really you're just watching a movie about kids faking the moon landing.
Yeah. So you're known for working with very small budgets. What is the largest crew you've ever had on a project or even a scene?
That's a really good question. I think the biggest... I would definitely have been on Operation Avalanche, and actually, no, that's not true. An episode of Nirvana the Band, the show that we just shot, that involved a bank robbery, had a crew of about 22 or 23 people. But because we shoot everything like a fake documentary, you're able to cut out so much. You don't have a gaffing team. You don't really have a lighting team. The cinematographers are also doing the lighting. The cinematographers are also the camera operators. So we're dealing with, I would say, just off the bat, because we're shooting things like a doc, 10% of what you would normally need for a production team. But a typical day on Operation Avalanche would have been 6-7 of us, unless it was a big scene like something with the lunar module or that car chase sequence or the really, really intricate special effects stuff with Stanley Kubrick. Maybe we'd be up to 15 people.
You've stated that around 90-ish% of your budget winds up going towards music licensing. Has there ever been a song that you wanted to include but couldn't acquire the rights to?
Not yet. There's songs that I really wanted to use. We wanted to use Simon and Garfunkel's "America" in Operation Avalanche, and we were fighting and fighting and fighting for it, and we didn't get told no. But by the time we needed a definite answer, we decided to remove that sequence from the movie. And yeah, I should say the music budgets were 90% of The Dirties. In Operation Avalanche, it was probably closer to 40%.
Okay,
but still an insane number, like not normal at all.
I noticed that Operation Avalanche has an R rating.
Insane, right?
For language including a brief sexual reference. Does that make sense? And was there a specific line that they cited when the MPAA
no,
got back
and
to you? Like they just said...
This is just an example of like small independent films simply not having the punching power that major super violent movies do when they're dealing with the MPAA. I mean, obviously, I can't make much of a case to argue with them to give this a more family-friendly rating, even though the movie is totally sanitized.
Yeah.
There's nothing in the film that is objectionable at any level, apart from the fact that we swear in a colloquial way. But for whatever reason, that is, I guess, more dangerous to show to viewers than the murder of thousands of people in army movies or things like that. But
especially when it's like a total destruction of a city. It's just implied murder,
and the worst kind of murder, like war zone murder, like faceless corpses. Bomb goes off in Vancouver, everybody is dead, and they're like, rated G.
But you can't say fuck.
Yeah, and it's insane.
Especially more than once.
Yeah, that's right. They'll let you say fuck once. I think you can say
said it
shit
twice now.
Yeah, this is already an R-rated.
Shit.
This is
fuck.
An R-rated document.
Damn it.
Interview.
We can't screen this.
Well,
We're done.
You could,
it's
but
over.
It would be 18 plus.
You mentioned that you're now working with the same lawyer that worked on Escape from Tomorrow. Could you tell us more about that?
About finding him, or about what the process of working with him was like?
Yeah.
Well, I was when the Dirties was playing in film festivals, and Escape from Tomorrow was also in film festivals. And that movie, if you don't know, was shot all on location at Disney World without permission. And this lawyer was able to make a great fair use case for having it released, and Disney didn't sue them, and it just seemed miraculous. And so I asked how they did that, because we were thinking about making this film about NASA and shooting on location. And I spoke with Chris Perez, the lawyer who did it, and he said, yeah, like, we can figure out how to do that. And so now, whenever we do anything, whether it's movies or making this television show that we make, we always consult with Perez first to see what it is that we can and can't do, whether that involves shooting with police officers or shooting in the public or shooting with celebrities who don't know they're on camera. There's so many different variations of how you can use the law to do new things, and we're trying to figure out what those are. And so when we have an idea, I don't know if you've been to Canada's Wonderland, which is a big, massive theme park.
No.
It's like Six Flags or Disney World in Toronto. We wanted to shoot an entire episode there where we kidnap a dying kid from the Sick Kids Hospital to try to steal his Make-A-Wish from the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and we bring him to Canada's Wonderland to try to manipulate him. And we shot that entire thing without permission on the grounds, and then eventually we're thrown up by the police. But we got to keep our footage.
Nice.
And that it just allows us to show audiences things and show other filmmakers that you can do things that you didn't think you were allowed to do. And from that limitation of having no money and no power, you can actually do more interesting stuff than you could have if you'd had the money and the power, which I like a lot.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm a big fan of pushing those boundaries, so to speak, because the laws, especially when it comes to fair use, are written in such a vague way.
Of course.
That if there's enough examples of people using them in certain ways, then that sort of defines the law itself, right?
And
case law.
Which is one of the reasons that we're trying to push it as far as we can, because just like how Escape from Tomorrow motivated us to push it a bit further with Operation Avalanche, I'm hoping to see other films doing even crazier things that then make what we're doing seem pedestrian and completely normal.
Yeah.
To the point where a show like Nirvana the Band or a movie like Operation Avalanche could not be seen as a legal anomaly.
Yeah.
Like, how great would that be if this is just typical production techniques?
Could you go into detail about the special effects that went into the film? So you mentioned it briefly, but just I saw that Vice did a very cool kind of interview with, I'm not sure if you were in it. It was somebody from your crew about the special effects.
Probably Tristan Zarafa, probably our head of VFX. But I mean, that question is so massive, because there's like over 200 VFX shots in the movie, and every single challenge was different. So I mean, I can tell you about recreating Stanley Kubrick illegally from photographs that Time magazine took, but that is completely different than all the insane compositing that happened during that one-take car chase.
What was the one that impressed you the most then?
When I first saw it was Stanley Kubrick. When I saw Stanley Kubrick walking, talking, and moving like a real person, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Because we went to the Kubrick estate to say, hey, can we have anything that you have of Kubrick behind the scenes of 2001? We need it for our movie. And they said, fuck off. You can't have anything.
Yeah.
It's so secretive. It's crazy. He burned the sets of 2001 when they finished shooting.
Wow.
So that nobody could ever, I don't know what he did or recreate it or make sequels.
Probably wanted to remain independent.
Yes, exactly.
Not have copycats.
Well, that's exactly, and you'll notice that even after 2001, there were so many B-movie copycats
Oh,
of that
yeah.
film anyway, so it was almost in vain. But they said no, and so we were left with no option other than to 3D animate photographs, high-res photographs, and turn them into massive environments. So he would just build real 3D space out of 2D images, and then have me and the other actors work in this gigantic green screen studio and then build it all together. It took 6 months to do. And the audio for Stanley Kubrick we took from his daughter's documentary on The Shining that was released in 1980, or in the 1980s. And so Stanley Kubrick is talking with his own voice, and we just synced it, the animation, to what he was saying. It's crazy.
That's really cool. Now, apparently, you got away with tricking NASA employees into doing a lot of weird and crazy things. Could you describe how that went?
Well, we wanted to shoot at NASA because we needed to shoot on location. Again, it's a documentary about NASA in the 1960s. And we couldn't do what Ron Howard did, which was just pay to rebuild it all. Yeah. And so we phoned them. I was doing my master's in Toronto at the time, and we told them, we're film students. We're making a documentary about NASA in the 1960s. Can we come and film there? And they said yes. And so our small team flew down there, And it's just as it seems. We were dressed in 1960s clothes with our old cameras, and we had a bag of extra clothes just in case we met people that we wanted to put in the documentary. We could have them wear these clothes, and it just worked. They were so open to it. When we would interview people who worked for the space program, sometimes we would have them change into these clothes and pretend it was the 1960s. Sometimes we could digitally change people's clothes. We did all kinds of tricks. But, I mean, that when you're watching the movie and you're seeing these people from NASA talk about the space program, or talk about, there's a moment where they're talking about places on Earth that actually look like the moon, that's all real. Those are just real interviews. And because our cover in real life, we're just students making a documentary, was identical to the cover our characters have in the movie, which is, we're from the CIA, but we're just here making a documentary. Mm-hmm. It meant that we could be sneaky and hide and be really paranoid in real life, the way that we actually did feel, and that would resonate one-to-one with the same way it was in the movie.
And plus your character has the same name.
Oh, we all have the same name. Yeah, exactly.
So out of all the people in the film, there was only a handful of you that were actually actors who were in on it.
Right. Yeah. There's only a few people who actually knew what the movie was. Everybody else thought that they were either not in the movie, or that they were in a documentary about Apollo, or, I mean, God knows what. But again, that was another great use of Chris Perez and figuring out what it was we were allowed to do. Mm-hmm. And again, so long as we aren't really insulting people or making people look stupid, which was never our intention to do, we sort of have, there is a good precedence for doing this kind of thing, because the performances you get are so wicked. Everybody's just being themselves.
Genuine.
Yeah, exactly. Real people who really did these things, talking about it with passion. How do you get an actor to do that?
Exactly. As soon as I saw the older man that you two were asking questions, as soon as he was introduced, and his initial reaction after he was told who you people were was just, I forget the exact line, but it was like, oh yeah, like just some weird thing that you could never possibly write, but it just seems so real.
Because
and
it
I'm
is
like,
real.
Yeah, it's something that you can't really recreate unless maybe you're the Coen brothers.
Yeah, and you're working with actors forever. And
yeah.
You're working with the best of the best, which again is a real problem, especially in Canada with Canadian independent film, that we don't, one, have access to the same body of talent in terms of performers, and two, the amount of money it gets to work with people who are really at the top of their game puts you, like, you just can't. We don't have those types of budgets. And so that, we learned that in the Dirties, but really it's just a necessity of your financial situation.
Mm-hmm. Was there ever a point that you thought that for sure they had caught on to you, or that they would?
Yeah, there were two moments. When we shot that sequence in Mission Control, and I'm first saying we're going to fake the moon landing, it was behind what we thought was soundproof glass, and the entire NASA team that had brought us there was right behind it watching us. That's awesome. We're doing this entire scene saying we're going to fake the moon landing. If you watch, that's why I'm whispering. I'm whispering that scene because I'm so worried that the people looking at me can hear me.
That's the shot in the trailer, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Funny. And so there I thought they were going to come in and be like, okay, guys, what the fuck are you doing? But again, no, the glass was totally soundproof. It was so lucky. And another time was when, it's a scene that's not in the movie, where we were shooting quite a loud scene about sort of everything falling apart, and we thought for sure they knew. But we never got in trouble at NASA. We got in trouble at Shepperton Studios in London, where we were shooting that Stanley Kubrick stuff, right, where Kubrick actually shot 2001. There, they were shooting Avengers 2, Age of Ultron, and the police came and threw us out because they thought we were the paparazzi trying to film,
That's funny.
Yeah.
And so you never got any kind of like legal threats from NASA or anything?
No, because again, the way that filming anywhere works is that once you have the footage, it's yours, right? Unless it's something like incriminating, or I'm trying to make a case showing that somebody is a murderer or something like that. I mean, that you can't do, but I mean, just footage, you own it. Like the footage you guys are shooting right now, once, you don't need to get me to sign a release to use this. Like, I'm clearly compliant in the creation of it, and it's your footage. Like your personal property ownership rights trumps quite a bit of my own rights to my own image, or my rights to this hotel room or whatever.
Yeah, you heard it here, folks, from professional rapist.
You didn't do any fun stuff. You didn't say take two, nothing.
No.
Yeah, you're
no fun with him.
I know, he's a consummate professional.
Yeah. I'm a boring man.
No, come on.
We know that the budget for the Dirties and Operation Avalanche are both very low budget films. Are you able to talk about the difference in budget between the two? I'm not sure if you're waiting on any kind of distribution for Operation Avalanche, or if you're able to talk about what the specific budget is?
Oh, of course we can. No,
Oh, yeah?
we have distribution.
Okay, great.
Lionsgate bought the movie, and we're in theaters in the United States right now.
Okay, perfect.
And actually, compared to the Dirties we made for $10,000, so obviously that was literally nothing.
Yeah.
Operation Avalanche had a way bigger budget. We had like close to $1 million to make this movie. But again, so much of that money went to things that are just like you just will never see.
Yeah.
When you're making a movie of that scale, and you're trying to do the things that you're doing, so much of your money goes into licenses and legal fees. So much. But again, not a big problem. I bet you that's the cleaning staff. Keep rolling.
You can
We'll
get
see.
that. Okay.
Oh yeah, this could be interesting. Hello?
Follow.
Hi, do you want to come back in maybe an hour? Is that okay? Thank you. Hey.
Hey.
I wasn't wearing a lav.
I tried to bring the mic closer anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you can tell you guys obviously understand movies, but it's so rare to be given an opportunity to take the same characters and put them through some of the same paces, because the thematic space was so similar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That it was very important to us that we did a lot of the aping of dialogue and behavior that happened in the Dirties in this, just because, I mean, it's not going to be for everybody, but for people who are like following this film world, it's like there's just something crazy about it. You're like, what? Are they the same? Because we are the same, and the relationship is the same.
Yeah.
But of course the story is different, but we're sort of trying to say something about that, like the fact that this relationship is the same in 2012 as it is in 1968, and like that. But this thing that I think I'm wrestling with as a filmmaker, both in real life and in these films, is the same. It's the same kind of journey that can have many different outcomes. I mean, in the Dirties, it's a movie about a school shooting, and this is a movie about faking the moon landing. Literally couldn't be any more different. And yet, like, what's happening with the personal ambition of somebody who wants to do something impossible is the same. Which is why we do those stupid things, like say the same lines, and yeah.
I'm a big fan of kind of meta reality fusing with fiction.
Me too.
Kind of films. I'm always fond of those. My favorite films are like The Holy Mountain in Synecdoche, New York, and like
and
super
adaptation.
meta. Yeah.
You're a Holy Mountain fan.
Yeah, oh yeah.
We have a Holy Mountain poster up in our office.
Yeah, I noticed your Hausu poster in Nirvana the Band the Show in the background.
Really?
That was great. I
Yeah.
love that movie.
Me too. We have a deal with Criterion where they just send us whatever posters
Oh, nice.
we want,
That's awesome.
and we just put them up all throughout the show.
That's
Yeah.
great. That's
Yeah.
actually fantastic. So the project that you are working on now that I just mentioned, Nirvana the Band the Show, if I remember correctly, you've got 3 seasons planned right
Yeah.
now?
And we just finished the first one.
And could you describe the project for my viewers who probably don't know anything about it?
Yeah, it's again a really simple premise. It's basically Flight of the Conchords shot in the style of the Ali G show. So it's a show about 2 musicians in Toronto who are just trying to get famous, but they're essentially brain dead and they have no talent whatsoever. Like, they don't know that Nirvana is the name of an actual band. Like, that's sort of where they're at in terms of what they know about the world, but they go for it as hard as they can. They just want to get a show at this one club in Toronto, and that's it. But the things that they are willing to do to get that show are crazy. Like, they just wind up in situations that you would never think these 2 types of people would be in. And basically it's a canvas for my team to do whatever crazy idea we can think of, whether that's, I mean, if you saw the episodes that we screened at TIFF,
Yep.
like sneaking a movie into a film festival, or sneaking a float into the Santa Claus parade, or, as I mentioned before, stealing a dying kid's wish from the Make-A-Wish Foundation.
Yeah.
Just things that, if we think of something, this show can normally accommodate it. Normally this show can do more or less anything. So yeah, we're basically trying to do in television what we're doing in movies.
Yeah, I've been really itching for another kind of show to sort of revive the Ali G-esque way of filming and capturing
Nathan,
situations.
for you.
Oh yeah, I love that show too.
Yeah, me as well. Nathan, for you, I think is that and Rick and Morty are for me the 2 greatest shows on television right now. I think the best shows that have been on TV for a long time, to be honest. And that is a huge influence on us. Although where he's doing that in sort of the fake reality TV world, we're trying to take that language and do it in the narrative scripted series world. So trying to show things that when you're watching deal with the archetype of sitcoms and the archetype of 80s, 90s television, but done in a way where you just can't believe it's happening in the real world.
I also got a bit of a spaced vibe from it too, which is nice to see.
Yeah, with our old web series, because this was originally a web series back in 2006, we heard the same thing, that it seemed like we were doing Spaced. Jay and I never watched Spaced until afterwards.
Oh, yeah?
But I mean, I love the comparison. Obviously, I'm a fan of the director.
So the original web series, impossible to watch right now.
Intentionally
literally.
So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, intentionally so. We the reason we took our website down, we own all the content. Like it's Jay and my show. We took it down because there was going to be so much press, I shouldn't say so much, but enough press about the release of the new show that we didn't want people to think, oh wow, this show exists, and then they look it up and then they just see our old web show, which we're very proud of, but we didn't want that to be confused with the show that we're making now.
It's like you 10 years ago.
Exactly. Versus now. And I mean, I love that show, but we definitely have learned a lot about how to make content since then.
My YouTube videos are very different 10 years ago also.
And so should they be. And there's no reason to be ashamed of that, but definitely to ignore the fact that people get better is ridiculous.
You want to be able to show off what you're currently capable of.
Yeah, and we will make the web series available once the show is on the air. Yeah, I mean, of course we will. Plus, there's a few DVDs still floating around in the world. Yeah,
you have DVDs.
We made Criterion issued DVDs
of
the original web series and gave them to people back when it was still on the air, quote unquote.
Yeah, and so the show is showing up in December?
January? Yeah, end of January. In Canada, it'll be on City TV and Viceland. And in the States, it'll be on Viceland. And it's playing basically anywhere that Vice has a network. So we're really stoked about it.
And so these 3 seasons, is that going to take place over the next 3 years?
It'll take place we've just finished shooting season 1, and shooting season 2 will probably take us another 6 months. We shoot so out of order because we shoot whenever an opportunity comes to shoot an episode. So we're about midway through season 2 in terms of shooting. Yeah. And I imagine we will be done and completely wrapped up by the end of 2017, all 3 seasons.
And so while you're filming this show, are there any other projects that you'll be working on simultaneously, or is this the main only focus for the time being until the 3rd season?
I mean, this is like a stupid amount of work to make this show, but we're also developing this next film that we're making.
Awesome.
That we're going to start shooting, I think, at the beginning of 2018, which I think you would like. Werner Herzog plays Albert Einstein, who built a time machine for the Nazis in the 1930s, and then in the 1950s, they decide to send a Mossad agent back in time to kill Hitler, but everything goes wrong. It's a very cool movie.
Looking forward to it. Just wrapping this up now. I've already kind of said this in between other questions, but I really appreciate your unique style of filmmaking. You have a very important voice in filmmaking right now, I think, and not just in Canadian filmmaking, but also on a much larger scale than that. You have a lot of fans on my channel in particular, and it's very important to see someone pushing these boundaries, testing the limits, and very importantly being able to work within such low budgets and being able to actually get something out of it. It's very inspirational for film students and filmmakers in general, people who might be scared to make their first film. And so the last question I have for you is, what is the best piece of advice that you can give to anyone who wants to make their first film but hasn't done that yet?
There's 2 things. One of them is not my advice. It was advice that I heard from someone, and then something that I know to be true just from working things on my own. And the first one is actually advice from Ira Glass, who makes that show This American Life. And this advice, I think, is so vital for anybody doing anything creative, and that is that normally everybody who wants to make movies normally has a really great level of taste. Like, you're a great example, someone whose taste, like, you just know what you like and you know what you don't like, and you can describe and define that so easily. And I'm the same way. I know what I like. But when you go out to make your first film or your first anything, your ability to do that thing is probably not going to line up with your ability to know that it's good. So your taste and your skill are not going to line up. And that's just reality. That was the reality for me when I was in film school. Like, my student films are atrocious. The beginning of Nirvana the Band, the show, is atrocious. Like, it's so brutal, just technically to watch it. But I didn't give up, and I think because I was working with people that I really liked working with, we all kept it up, and then by the Dirties and Operation Avalanche, and now with the new show, I feel like our talent for making this kind of stuff and our taste we're closing the gap. And it's really important to know that you're not going to be able to work at the level you want to be able to work at right away. It's just not going to happen. So don't give up just because you're finding that, oh man, my first effort is here and my taste is here. Most people give up there. Again, this is not my advice. It's the advice of a very smart guy that I really agree with. And the second piece of advice is that failure, doing this kind of thing, is not bad. Failure is good. One of the things that I'm trying to encourage, this is political, but the things I'm trying to encourage funding bodies in Canada to promote is failure. Funding films that are not going to make money, that are not going to go anywhere, simply as a matter of training young people to make movies. And the idea that I'm going to wait and wait and wait until everything is perfect, I've got the perfect script, I've got enough money, I've got the right actors, everything that I need, that's great. But you may be waiting forever. And you're actually in a much better position to try something that maybe is a little bit crazy and failing completely at it than you would be waiting 5 years to do something that could be perfect. Because you can keep working throughout that 5 years at getting better, so that by the time you have the opportunity to make something where the conditions are correct, your talent and confidence in yourself can make you rise to the occasion. And it's hard because a lot of people don't want to fail publicly. That's brutal. Nobody wants to do that. But it is absolutely essential. And people will forgive something that is not quite perfect because everybody recognizes, I think, that we're unfinished creatively. Nobody expects to find, a 25-year-old master. It's not even interesting. People want to see your first film, warts and all, with mistakes, not quite right. And with the Dirties, we thought, okay, what's wrong with us? What's wrong with us as filmmakers? Well, we don't know how to make movies. We can't shoot. We can't act. We have no money, right? I mean, these are like the main problems that most first-time filmmakers have. And we thought, well, how can we make those the best thing about our movie? How can the fact that we can't act, we have no money, and we don't know how to make movies, how can that be a strength? And so we made a movie about kids planning a school shooting who didn't know how to make movies, and yet they're making a movie about themselves. So all those things that were so shitty actually made it so that our movie's completely unique. A Hollywood producer trying to make our movie couldn't do it. In the same in Operation Avalanche with that car chase, someone with a $50 million budget couldn't do that car chase. In fact, it would be impossible for them to shoot that car chase because just legally, ethically, they couldn't do it. And so find those places. Find the places where you have the power to do something that the powerful people can't do. And then when you deliver on that, you seem like it seems like magic. But that's only because really the people with means and money and power simply don't have access to those same tools that you have. Almost in a David and Goliath type way. You can use your smallness to sneak into NASA, to sneak into high schools, to sneak into Canada's Wonderland in a way that, the new Blair Witch movie, they can't do that. They just can't because they're answering to important people. So that's my advice to young filmmakers, if that makes any sense. There are things that you can do that nobody else can do, and if you can realize what those are, the world is your oyster. Because all that executives in Hollywood are looking for is new voices doing new things, and that's it. It's not the same as back in the 90s where they just wanted technical masters who could imitate the Hollywood form perfectly. That's gone. They want new people.
Great answer. Thank you so much for the interview.
Always a pleasure talking to you.
All right, you heard it from professional rapist Matt Johnson. Go check out his new film, Operation Avalanche. Nirvana, the band, the show, coming out January, City TV and Viceland TV. And the Dirties, already fully available to purchase. Do you still have any of those limited edition Blu-rays left?
No.
Are they all gone?
No, I think they've been gone for a while.
I got 2 of them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What covers?
I have the Rosemary's Baby cover.
Incredibly rare.
And the Time Bandits cover.
Yeah, that Rosemary's Baby's cover is incredibly rare. Yeah, lucky you.
Awesome. Thank you.